Harsh Mander, now who's a human rights activist. He joins us now from New Delhi. Harsh, good to have you here on the NewsHour. Let's start off with the latest, and that is what's looking like the first steps by the Indian government to go ahead with this population survey. What's your reaction, sir?
See, India has long had a census every 10 years, and it's a massive exercise. We have a very large population. But the census is done under the census law, and it has two rules: that the data will be entirely confidential and cannot be used for any other purpose. Now, the need to have something called a national population register, it is completely disingenuous of the government to say it has nothing to do with the National Register of Citizens, and I'll just explain that very briefly. The citizenship laws in India were actually changed under an earlier BJP government in 2003, which talks about building up a national register of Indian citizens by rules which will be prescribed, and the rules prescribe a national register of the national population register. The difference is that what the population register is not going to investigate into whether you're a citizen or not, just who is where. But this is data unlike the census. It's similar to what the census collects, but it is now usable by the state. Now, what the rules say is that after the population register is completed, the state will identify those who it regards to be doubtful citizens and will investigate their legal citizenship. Which is actually even more terrifying than what happened in Assam, because Assam, at least every citizen had to go through the same process. But this allows a selection, and with the kind of attitude to the minorities, especially the Muslim minorities.
Harsh, I think you're getting to the point that you don't believe in the motives of the Indian government. Fair enough, that's your point. But I also want to bring up a tweet, a message that you actually posted on social media on December the 9th. You wrote that if the CAB is passed, this is my civil disobedience. I will officially register as a Muslim. Then I will refuse to submit any document to the NRC. You yourself are not Muslim, but you have chosen to come out like this. How much support have you gotten for this? And how much hate messages have there been for this tweet that you put out?
Quite predictably, in the country that we have become, there was a huge amount of hate, which just continues to fill my Twitter account. But the point, I very briefly explain. The point is that Mahatma Gandhi had taught us that if there's an unjust law, peaceful resistance means you disobey publicly and performatively the law. But the other part is equally important, and that is to accept and demand punishment. So Mahatma Gandhi made a fistful of salt in defiance of the law and went to jail for 1 year, and 66,000 other people went with him. That was our form of resistance. The problem with what has happened now is that if I boycott the NRC, refuse to present any documents, disobey the state, nothing will happen to me, because the law has now been designed that precisely for somebody who's not Muslim will not have consequences. It's only my Muslim brothers and sisters who will have the consequences of possibly being sent to a detention center or stripped of their detention their rights. And therefore, I felt that the only way would be I'm not saying I'm going to convert to Islam. I'm a humanist and an agnostic, and that will remain. But wherever the government is going to, decide my rights based on my religion, and this has happened for the first time in India, I will register as Muslim.
Okay, Harsh, you're talking about this peaceful protest. You're part of this civil disobedience movement. Some have actually drawn similarities to what happened 70 years ago with Mahatma Gandhi. How do you see this playing out?
It's an extraordinary moment in the journey of our republic. I haven't seen anything like this. And it's spontaneous. It's I've been traveling around the country. I was just yesterday in Bangalore, and there were 100,000 people who came out. And the wonderful thing is that you'd see Muslims looking Muslim with their skull caps, holding the national flag. You have people of every other religion. You have young people. You have old people. And what they're saying is, we're out to defend our constitution, and we are here to underline what Mahatma Gandhi told us about living together with respect and peace. So Hindu-Muslim unity, we respect each other, we love each other, this country belongs equally to all. There hasn't been this kind of protest since Mahatma Gandhi.
Okay, you talked about young people, you talked about old people, but these are all Indians. But just recently there was a German student who took part in these civil disobedient protests, these peaceful protests, and he was asked to leave the country, was he not? What do you think this says of the BJP?
See, the BJP is so, it has been completely rattled by these protests. I mean, the Prime Minister has been describing people like me as urban Maoists. And he taunted the protesters by saying that I can recognize the protesters by their clothes, meaning that they are Muslim. And people have come out and said, that don't try to divide us. This protest is by all of us together. And it is, they are banning every protest. I was out on the streets again today. I was taken into detention a few days ago for protesting peacefully. And so they completely rattled. The Prime Minister also actually came yesterday and said, I've never spoken about our government has never spoken about the National Register of Citizens, whereas they've been speaking about it over and over again in Parliament, that there are no detention centers. I have visited detention centers and petitioned the Supreme Court about them. And I think that in this whole panic, the attitude to this young German student who just said, please remember the echoes of what happened in my country during the build-up to the Holocaust. I'm seeing the same graded citizenship. I'm seeing the same detention centers like concentration camps. I fear what is happening, and he had every right to do it, and he was turned out of the country.
A fascinating story. All right, I do appreciate your analysis, Harsh Mander, joining us now from New Delhi. Thank you.